Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's video. Hansa Park is located in the beautiful seaside resort of Germany. This isn't a normal average everyday park though. Inside the park, there is this ominous tower standing 72 meters high. Lurking inside the tower is a Gerstlauer! Oh shit, this is gonna be a Gerstlauer video! Well, let's talk about the Schwur des Karnan's lift.
Now get ready, here we go.
Alright, this is your first time here, welcome. I'm glad you made it to the video. Check out other videos, I got plenty out there. I've got a little bit on every single subject. Karnan, we're gonna just shorten it to Karnan because that's what a lot of people call it. So Karnan, it's an interesting ride. It is, of course, made by Gerstlauer! I know a lot of people said in my previous videos, like, how come you didn't do that for all of them? It's like, well, I'm going to, so this might get annoying. So I'm going to play around with it a little bit, though. You tell me how it came out at the end. What's unique about this? Well, it's not unlike a lot of other typical Gerstlauer infinity coaster models. It's roughly 73 meters high. Top speed is almost 79 miles per hour, 90-degree drop, and track length is about 4,050 feet long. But on this particular ride, the entire lift is enclosed in a tower where you really can't see what's going on the inside of there. And this is where the ride's unique element comes into, what I want to discuss today. This is Karnan's reverse freefall lift. It's really interesting, right? Basically, you go up the lift like you do on a lot of other, infinity style coasters, Eurofighters, a lot of things like that. They all do the same thing. They go vertical up the lift. But the difference is on Karnan, it actually falls backwards down the lift. Now, this is a very interesting topic to talk about. It was one of those things when I started looking at this ride, I was like, I really want to do a video on this because it's genuinely interesting. So normally on infinity coasters, they're all constructed the same way. I've done videos about this in the past too, about vertical lifts, but they're pretty much constructed the same way. The lift itself has no anti-rollbacks except for the brake fins, or essentially magnetic fins that stick out and go through the coach's yoke. And what they do is as the coach goes up, the fin is actually sitting on a pivot arm, which allows it to basically pivot up really fast. It's a very short arm. So as it goes up, the eddy current generated by the brake actually grabs that anti-rollback fin and pushes it into the tower as long as it is going by. So as soon as it passes back by, they fall down and come right back out. So it's a really cool concept. As long as it's going up, the fins stay inside essentially. As soon as it tries to go backwards, it pulls that fin right back out of the tower and it's able to safely lower itself down to the bottom. Now, the motor also has a brake for these particular rides. So in order for this to truly work, it has to lose the chain. Now, unlike a normal roller coaster, these things don't use a chain dog. Okay, so on a traditional roller coaster, you would have something that's kind of like this. This is basically a mock setup of a chain dog. Basically, this one will sit underneath the coach as it sits like this, and it will come across a link, drag over the top of it, and drop in, and then grab a hold of that link and continue, and the chain will continue to push it back up. So essentially, it's being driven forward just like this. Right here. Now, the coach does not have a chain dog like this. It's got a pickup catch. It's a little tiny bar that sticks down with a little crosshair underneath it, and it essentially kind of does this number, but instead of latching into the chain, there is a pusher or a lug on the chain itself. It's honestly, they're just called an attachment because that's all it is. It's an attachment to the chain, and that particular piece grabs the coach and pushes it up the lift hill. So for one of these infinity Eurofighter type Gerstlauer trains to actually come back down the lift, the first thing it has to do is lose that pushing lug or that attachment device. It has to come off of it. So there's a couple things that could happen. It could, the dog itself that's underneath the coach could break, or the chain could break, or the motor could shut off and the whole thing can go into reverse for some reason. Also possible, even though the motor has a brake. Now on the, if I get the name of this right, on the Eurofighter style models, they have toothed anti-rollback rails going up there. That's where the anti-rollback dogs themselves will actually go up next to the chain dog, essentially. We're going to call it a chain dog. And it'll ratchet into the side of it. So when those stop, they cannot go down backwards. The Infinity style, and I think some of the other ones as well, I believe there's both types available, use an anti-rollback fin on the track. So as it goes up, it simply, like I was saying earlier, it lifts the fins out of the way, and then as it tries to come back down, it pulls the fin back out. So this makes for a much easier evacuation for those particular ones, because when they stop vertically, all you have to do is essentially go out to the lift motor, let's say in a power failure, and open the brake on the motor. And that allows everything to turn backwards. The chain will turn backwards because the coach is using gravity to push that back down. But it has to push it back down because it's still holding on to the chain. If you were to let go of the chain, it doesn't have to push against it. It could just simply go against those brake fins, assuming something like that little pusher lug or the catch underneath there broke and nothing was holding it. So how do you get that whole assembly on the lift hill to work like Karnan's does? Well, let's go over what Karnan's does. Well, just like any model, you come out there and you get to the base of the lift, the little pusher lug grabs you and it takes you up to the top of the lift. Now, this is a really tall lift, 239 feet high, 73 meters. Like, that's really big. That's a really, really big lift. I believe it's one of Gerstlauer tallest lifts for sure. So anyways, it has to grab the coach and push it up towards the top, which is what it does perfectly every time. Now, for Karnan, what it does is it actually stops inside of the tower. Now, mind you, this whole thing, there's not a lot of video of this because the whole thing is pitch black. There's no light in there. Now, Karnan's been revised to be the Oath of Karnan, translated, I believe it is. But then they show a video. Basically, as you're sitting there looking vertically, the coaches are run where one particular train has basically 4 rows, 4 people across. So you're sitting there vertically and you're watching a show, basically. And then part of the way through that show, spoiler alert, the entire train drops backwards down that lift. So the cool thing is, like, how does it do that? Lifts are not designed to run backwards, but this one free falls in reverse. Really cool concept. So I started digging into it. I'm like, all right, how do we defeat this stuff? We have anti-rollbacks you have to defeat. You have got the pusher lug that you have to defeat. Like, how do we get past those two things? And I started digging into it and I found a bunch of answers, basically. Really hard to visualize this. There is, I'll put a link to this video down there. Someone made I believe it's a No Limits 2 recreation of Karnan's lift. And No Limits 2 is really great because it's very detailed. It's extremely detailed. And you can kind of see how the whole assembly works, how the whole thing works. So let's talk about it. The logistics of doing this. So the first thing we have to do is get the vehicle up there, which we did. And then up towards the top, we are going to stop the vehicle up there. All right, so when we stop the vehicle, it is not just like a lift stop that we typically do. We are going to actually hold the vehicle there. A typical lift has anti-rollbacks, which Karnan does. And then it has the lift chain and attachment or pushing lug, which it does. But how do you hold a vehicle there? Well, the Infinity coasters and a lot of other ones that they make use a brake fin off to the side. It is a physical brake fin. That is, you have the anti-rollback. It's like left to right. You have anti-rollback, chain, and then a brake fin, a mechanical brake fin. This is used for block zones because even though Gerstlauer are really cool, you still have to have blocks with them, right? What they did is they used that brake fin off to the side. So they've moved the vehicle up into what would be like a lift park position, and then they applied the brakes to the brake fin. They have multiple brakes holding the train now. So now we are holding the train, and we're just going to say lift park or lift weight, whatever you want to call it. Now, what do we have to do? We have to overcome anti-rollbacks, and we have to overcome the pushing lug that's on the chain. So let's talk about the easy one first, anti-rollbacks. Well, this was like one of those things I really like. Well, you could put pneumatics on those and retract them back in so they weren't there. That would allow free fall. And I'm like, well, how would that work? Because, man, you'd have to put so many sensors on those cylinders in order to take them back out and put them back in. I'm not sure if like the engineers would want to do that, because I'm like, well, what happens if they stayed in or stayed out? So I was digging around. Lights on videos are so few and far between. I found one, which I'll show because it's such a small little tiny clip. And the footage is very, very not great. It's filmed on a potato. Let's take a look at that real quick. Actually, inside of there, if you look at the lift, it looks like the anti-rollback fins on the left-hand side are missing on part of the lift. Now you have to kind of stop it and look really carefully, and the video is grainy. But I also found a picture online taken from the bottom of the lift hill. And the picture on the way up, it looks like when the ride was just being installed and put together, someone took a picture of it up there, and you could see that exact same gap really towards the top. It looks like a small gap, but remember, the thing's 240 feet high. So it's actually quite a large gap. Now, in between when they installed it and then when they turned it into Karnan's Oath, there was a revamping there where they actually made the reverse freefall more intense. So I'm believing that they took more anti-rollbacks out and then did the second, they basically lengthened the drop to make it longer. So that was kind of interesting. So the way you allow a free fall is you take the anti-rollbacks completely out of the ride. They're not there. So safety-wise, if you think about that, like, whoa, wait, that part has no anti-rollbacks. Well, what's the worst that's going to happen here? Let's think about that. Well, if you're pushing up there on the way up, and then worst case scenario, your lifting lug or the chain breaks, or the component, the attachment on the train breaks, something catastrophically fails, the coach will fall backwards. But that's actually part of the design element on this ride. It's going to fall backwards regardless. So, okay, the rest of the ride is designed for this process. So it's like, all right, so towards the top, you leave the anti-rollback fins off of it. Interestingly enough, right at the top where you stop up there and those brakes are applied and it's holding that coach, Gerstlauer decided to leave the anti-rollback fins from there on up, the little bit of the way up that it's left up there. They left the fins on there. So essentially, it's like, okay, there's partially fins there, partially fins not. I would have made the decision just to remove all the ones from the drop sequence on up to the top, because I'm like, why? If you need them, you're going to reverse free fall anyway. What's the big deal? I'm not sure, but I'm also not an engineer, right? Just a mechanic. I beat on things with a hammer. We've taken care of the anti-rollbacks. We've held the train in position now. So how are we going to get rid of the pusher, the lug, the catch that's underneath there that's holding the lug on the chain itself? How are we going to get rid of that? Well, in comes the little spiel, the little video that they play while you're listening to Karnan's Oath, where he's talking about, honestly, I'm not sure what. Where he's talking about it, though, where the show is going on. during that time while you're watching that show, what's happening is that they're actually running the chain with that lug in reverse. They're running it all the way back down, essentially to the very bottom of the lift hill. And it's going to wait down there. So now we've removed the anti-rollbacks, we've removed the lug, so it's not holding the chain anymore. And now the only thing holding that coach right there is those brakes at the very top. Now, when we position the train up there, we're obviously going to run it up there and use proximity sensors to make sure the coach is in the exact spot it needs to be in. So we're going to do a bunch of different things. We're going to say we're going to use proximity sensors to actually watch the actual position of the train. We're going to monitor the brake fin. We're going to say once it gets into those brakes, you're going to slow down, which it does. And then right at the top where we want it to, we're going to tell it to stop. We're going to kill the motor and apply the brakes at the same time. So now we're holding the chain. And then we're going to tell the motor to go ahead and go to its reverse and run that pushing lug all the way back down to the bottom below where the train is supposed to stop. So now we get into the drop sequence. It's like, okay, you watched a little video, and then when the video is done, those brakes open and the train drops. Now you go backwards, you free fall back down this tower in complete darkness, which is pretty cool if you ask me. You free fall all the way back down the tower, and then towards the bottom, you're going to get anti-rollbacks again. Well, what do those anti-rollbacks fin act as on a reverse free fall? They act as the brakes. So you get free fall, and just like a drop tower, you hit those magnetic fin brakes back on the way back down. And then once you come down and get slowed down towards a certain spot, there is another set of mechanical brakes there. Now, the mechanical brakes, this is the part I'm unsure of because there's no video of this, there's no nothing. So what I would do is I would use, let's say, 4 mechanical brakes in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the lights on picture, you could see something similar to that on there. Towards the bottom, you see a handful of mechanical brakes there. What I would do is I would leave 1 completely shut, and then I would leave 3 open. And the purpose of that is that my one at the bottom is going to just be like the, hey, don't go past this point. If the coach hits this, I want it to stop there. Now, below that, the block is occupied all the way back through the brakes lower on. Those infinity coasters can come all the way back down under their own drift through those brakes, and they will just settle out in the curve at the bottom. They'll just stop right there. There's nothing to it. There's no need to really guard that at all because it's all brakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these ones on top open, this one closed just because I don't want it going past this point. And then I'm going to use proximity sensors down here, and I'm going to watch this bottom space. And I'm going to say there's one here, and then towards the top and bottom, the one on the top is going to be timed off the one off the bottom. So I'm going to say it's going to hit this first one, and then it should show up here within 3 seconds. Just throwing out numbers here, theoretical, I don't know. So I'm going to say hits this, and then it should show up here within 3 seconds. So I'm going to say once it hits that, if it doesn't show up here within 3 seconds, close the brakes. Because I'm going to say that that bottom proximity sensor malfunctioned, and it's not seeing the coach for some reason. And then that might produce a ride fault. Again, this is more programming stuff. I don't know what Gerstlauer did, really, but I'd like to think about these things because it's all safety related, and you can kind of build the same safety factors into multiple things throughout multiple rides. And once you start thinking like engineers and safety and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, you kind of start to put those little things in there. What happened if it didn't see it here? I wanted to see it here. Well, it's like, that's when you put a timer in there. Because it's like, it should take X amount of time to do this. And if it doesn't show up down there, there's a good chance that the sensor failed. And you're going to shut the brakes anyway. So anyways, as the coach is coming down, comes down through those brakes, and it flags that bottom sensor, and then all those brakes apply. Once those brakes apply, the upper brake is still open. Lower brakes are now shut. Now is when I bring my pusher on the chain, on my lifting lug, I bring it back up to the coach. Now, because I know exactly where the train is, because as soon as that proximity sensor went high, I shut the brakes. So I know exactly where the train is. Now, remember, vertical lift hills, your pushing lug that's underneath the train, there's another one of those 180 degrees out. So up towards the top, there's another pusher lug up there. What's that good for? Well, that's good for running a series of proximity sensors all over those things. So for instance, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a proximity sensor, a couple of them, way up there to watch that pusher. So as the pusher is coming up, I know when it hits that proximity sensor, it's going to stop there. And because I wanted that, it's probably within just a little bit of distance of the coach. It's very close to the coach. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the motor for doing a vertical lift, and I'm going to open the brakes at the same time and let those two just connect and then pick up and go. Now, is that a great thing to do? Sure, why not? Is there a better way to do it? Yeah, there is. You put the lift motor into a low torque mode and you watch the torque value. This takes a little bit of fancy programming to do. That's why if I were a manufacturer, I wouldn't do it this way, because I like sensors, things turning on and off. When you start watching torque values, great, don't get me wrong, but like I think about the next drive and how that's going to be programmed to be put back in the ride when eventually that one fails. Might be a colossal nightmare, I'm not sure. So what I could do in that case is I could set that pusher up to go underneath the train, and then when it touches the train, it'll actually run into it, not really hard because it's set on low torque. So when I go up there, I'm going to touch the train, and then on my drive, I'm going to watch the torque of that motor start to jump up and increase. And then as soon as I see that jump in torque, I release the brakes, because now I know the pusher is actually pushing on the coach. And I release the brakes, and it's a seamless transition. I also go into high torque mode at that point and push that coach up and out of the way. That is a lot of stuff to go wrong, as opposed to if I just open the brakes with the lug close, I know it's going to get it pretty much every single time. And then that next time, I push that coach all the way up and over, and then once it goes over the top, that clears the block. All right, so the first time through, that pusher lug, it pushes that coach up there, and then it's the same thing. I would use proximity sensors on the back side of the tower at the very bottom to know its position. So I go up, 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 and I stop. And I say, yeah, my lug should be down here, and the sensor up at top, and the brake should be high as well. And then I'm like, okay, I've caught it in both spots. I know exactly where it is. Then I start the reverse sequence. So again, tire sequence start to finish. We go off, we come from the station. It goes up to the hill, stops, just like a typical Infinity coaster does. The lug comes up from behind, goes underneath the coach, slows it down, bumps the back of the train, and then pushes the coach up. Gets all the way up towards the top. The proximity sensors on the brake fin go high, kills the motor, shuts the brake, and holds it. Now we're holding the train there. Now my motor goes into reverse, and I bring my lug all the way back down towards the bottom. Proximity sensor on the bottom, on the back side of the lug, stops it down there. And then I know that everything is clear. My brakes on the bottom are going to be closed. 3 of the brakes are, or 1 of the brakes are going to be closed. 3 are going to be open and waiting. And then I go through the entire sequence. When the show is done, time value, whatever it might be, I open that top brake and I wait. And I should see the sensors leave the brake assembly, stating that the coach is left. And then I will see the sensors go high down at the bottom when the coach shows up, and then I will grab the coach and hold it there. Then I'm going to advance the lug forward to get back up underneath the coach, hold it right there, sensor, and then go okay. Then release the brake and turn the motor on going forward again, push the coach up and over the top, go that way. Now, this whole thing takes time. I've recorded some of those times. Okay, so from when you dispatch from the station and you get up to lift, we're going to call it lift park, where the show starts, that took 70 seconds to do, 70 seconds. It's like, okay, from the time that the show sequence is done and you drop, so starts at the drop, everyone falls, and then goes back up and over the top, clearing the block. That takes 72 seconds. So now we're at 142 seconds over the top. Then it goes through the free run track out there and then goes through a set of breaks towards the very end just before the station. It's like a mid, not quite a mid-block break, but I mean, they are block breaks. That free run track experience out there, 70 seconds till it clears the block again. So, and then back to the station, clearing that next block, 30 seconds from there. So when you add all that time up, it's like, well, from dispatch to the time that you could send the next train is 140 seconds. So I started thinking, I'm like, could you speed that up? I mean, Gerstlauer did a pretty good job of making sure, but I was like, instead of bringing the lifting lug all the way back down to the bottom, like, could you just send it past the coach? And use it would be a special device, but you'd have to pull the dog out of the way and let the lug continue by. I'm like, could you do that? Wouldn't that be better? But because it's got a weight back down at the bottom, honestly, the only thing you could speed up would only be about 15 or 20 seconds, assuming the show didn't handle it. So they would have to rewrite the show to where it wasn't 70 seconds long. Or where it wasn't as long as it was, because that entire time, that 70 seconds, part of that is waiting for that lug to get all the way back down to the bottom. So they would have to redo all that. So I was like, well, yeah, you could, but you would save yourself 15, 20 seconds maybe. I'm like, okay, not great, but better. The thing is only, that one only has 3 coaches on it, I believe. So there's ample time to do loading in the station before it can be dispatched. And then the next one comes in behind it and can be unloaded, all within good time, so the crew isn't rushed. Yeah, because those Infinity-style trains can be much larger on those models, the bigger ones, they can go past, like the smaller models have only 2 rows to them. The larger models have 4 rows to them, so you can still keep your capacity up. Unlike a smaller one, let's say like the Monster out here in Iowa, it's only 2 rows deep. So the capacity is already double of something from a smaller Infinity coaster like that one. So the capacity is up there. It's actually got a pretty good capacity considering it's got that big show element in there. So really not a bad idea. I mean, Gerstlauer did a great job with that one. Both the design, execution, making the drop sequence in there, and the fact that Hansa Park enclosed that entire thing, because I mean that was part of the whole Karnan, that was part of the whole story. Karnan Tower story was that tower. So the fact that they put the whole thing inside, making it pitch black, making it hard to see and everything, was really cool. And that's a really fun ride. It looks like it's fun. I've of course never been on it, but I would love to get on that someday. What do you think? Would you try a Gerstlauer with a reverse free fall drop in it? I know I would. That sounds like a really fun element. I'd like to see that pop up on more stuff. It kind of, for a normal ride, if you don't have that, theme happening like they do at Hansa Park, it basically kills your throughput completely. Like, I couldn't see that. You'd almost need 2 lifts side by side to do that. Unless you did like I was talking about, where you sent the lug forward instead of waiting for it. Because basically, as soon as you lift that thing up, stop the train, and push the lug past the train, as soon as it passes that, you can drop the train. And then essentially just let it go back down and then continue to bring the next lug up to it and catch the train again. So you could really speed up that process, but Gerstlauer might not have something built to do that yet. And maybe they don't want to, because they're like, oh, the way that is designed into that coach, it's not going to work. Anyways, would you ride it? I would ride it. I know for sure. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Not that long today. It's great. Like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. All the buttons downstairs, they all help out. Like the video, hype the video. Haven't messed around with the hype thing. Honestly, I don't really know what it does. Some sort of algorithm thing. If you want to contact me, you can always just leave me a message down there. I try to read through them. You could always email me too at ryantheridermechanic@yahoo.com. And as always, stay off the air gates. Bye.